हाजिर हैं अपने नए वीडियो के साथ। आज हम बात करेंगे सीनियर मणिपुर की जर्नलिस्ट मेक पीस सितलो। तो चलिए हम उनको वेलकम करते हैं हमारे शो में। वेलकम मेक पीस टू आवर शो। We are very glad to have you on our show. Let me start on just saying that it's been 1 year since the Manipur violence began on May 3rd, 2023. So, do you have like the facts and figures have come through as to what is the kind of destruction and damage that Manipur has seen in this last 1 year?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sonal, for having me. Very happy to be part of the show. मैं हिंदी में भी बात कर सकती हूँ, तो I think जहाँ पे भी
Oh, nice.
अगर ये रहेगा तो I can always combine थोड़ा हिंदी और English में. But to kind of just answer your question, abhi, in fact, the governor had back in, I think in February this year, just shared some figures. Essentially, we're talking about over 200 people who are dead, and it's not a static figure. I think that's something that's important to explain to people because it is an ongoing conflict.
Yes.
शुरुआत में जब हुआ था, मतलब कि पहले हफ्ते में जो एक्चुअली इस पूरे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का जो है ना अलग अलग फेजेस रहा है, एक ही फेज में नहीं चला है। तो बिल्कुल शुरुआत में जब हुआ था, जब लाइक ब्रेकआउट हुआ था बेसिकली, उस वक्त क्या था कि दोनों वैली और हिल्स में जो ऑपोजिट कम्युनिटी के लोग हैं, दैट इज द माइनॉरिटी मेतेज इन द हिल्स एंड द माइनॉरिटी कुकीज इन द वैली, एंड आई मीन ओनली द कुकी ट्राइब्स बेसिकली। So इनको टारगेट किया गया था, and that's how, like, it was in the first part of it, the first week or something of it, it was much more like I would say a ethnic clash or riots as one has typically seen in communal clashes in the rest of the country, places like Gujarat or whatever, UP and Delhi. लेकिन उसके बाद how the conflict has basically mutated and continues to mutate actually, as we have seen in the past year, from an ethnic clash to an all-out civil conflict, and one in which the government, the state government in particular, and the central government by, I would say, by omission, essentially siding one side much more than the other. But again, sorry to go back on the figures since you asked me. At least we're talking about 60 से 70,000 लोग तो displaced है from the state, right? I mean, within the state as well as from the state. Within the state, अगर आप I don't know लगभग अगर figures देखेंगे तो शायद 30-40 के अराउंड होंगे, और फिर उसके जो रिमेनिंग जो फिगर्स है वो सब स्टेट के बाहर है, और वो ज़्यादातर कुकीज़ो ट्राइब से है। वो मिज़ोरम गए हैं, मिज़ोरम में करीब एटलीस्ट 10,000 लोग हैं, असम में काफ़ी सारे लोग भी हैं, एंड एज वेल एज प्लेसेस लाइक दिल्ली। तो इन सब जगहों में भी लोग डिस्प्लेस हुए हैं।
आपकी बात करें तो आप कहाँ की हैं और अभी आप कहाँ पे रह रही हैं, उस बारे में बताएं।
मैं ओरिजिनली मैं चुराचांदपुर की हूँ। दैट इज द डिस्ट्रिक्ट जहाँ पे ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बेसिकली शुरू हुआ था। दैट इज लाइक द ग्राउंड जीरो ऑफ द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट। और ओरिजिनली वहाँ से मैं हूँ। मेरे पेरेंट्स वहाँ के हैं। वैसे तो अगर आप मुझे पूछे, मेरा अस्तित्व हमेशा थोड़ा अजीब ही रहा है टू एक्सप्लेन, क्योंकि मैं एक आर्मी में पली बड़ी हूँ, तो इसलिए हम हैव बीन एवरीवेयर, पूरे नॉर्थ इंडिया में, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में, लाइक हर जगह मेरी परवरिश हुई है इन अ सर्टेन वे। तो मेरा बहुत ही पैन इंडियन आइडेंटिटी है। बट अदरवाइज यस, आई एम फ्रॉम मणिपुर, एंड बट मैं ज्यादातर गुवाहाटी और दिल्ली में रहती हूँ।
ओके, हाल में आप कहाँ रह रही हैं और आप मणिपुर लास्ट कब गई थी?
अभी एक्चुअली मैं होके आई हूँ। पूरे अप्रैल के महीने में मैं थी। उस वक्त इलेक्शन चल रहा था। इलेक्शन के 2 फेसेस हुए थे मणिपुर में, तो उस वक्त मैं एक्चुअली मणिपुर में थी और रिपोर्टिंग कर रही थी।
ओके, अदरवाइज आप कहाँ बेस्ड हैं?
अदरवाइज आप कह सकते हैं कि मैं गुवाहाटी में बेस्ड हूँ, और मैं दिल्ली में भी काफी पाई जाती हूँ आजकल।
ओके, तो ये जो आप अलग फेजेस की बात कर रही हैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की, उसके बारे में थोड़ा ज्यादा बताना चाहेंगे?
जी ठीक है। अगर मैं जितना समराइज कर सकती हूँ मैं उतना करूंगी, क्योंकि काफी ऑब्वियसली कॉम्प्लेक्स है, इसके काफी
Yes.
सारे नुआंस है, टाइमलाइन एक तरह से है। एक्चुअली क्या है कि इट्स अ रियल ट्रैवेस्टी की मीडिया में इसका बहुत ही प्रॉपरली आई वुड से कि डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं हुआ है. ऑल्दो आई मीन आई डोंट मीन टू से बहुत सारे नेशनल डेलीज हैं जो उसको मोर क्लोजली फॉलो कर रहे हैं. आई वुड मे बी लाइक नेम, इफ अगर यहाँ के जो आपके जो दर्शक है जो फॉलो करना चाहते हैं तो ज़्यादातर आई वुड रेकमेंड कि आप वो हिंदू फॉलो करें, क्योंकि हिंदू बिन वेरी क्लोजली फॉलोइंग द इवेंट्स टू सम एक्सटेंट, इंडियन एक्सप्रेस ऑल्सो. और आई थिंक अगर ऑनलाइन पोर्टल्स को देखा जाए तो दोनों वायर एंड स्क्रोल हैव बीन काइंड ऑफ on the news a lot. लेकिन क्या है, what is missing, ज़्यादातर क्या इस पूरे मीडिया, इस पूरे मतलब कि कवरेज में what is missing है इसकी कोई टाइमलाइन नहीं बताया गया है. या नो वन हैज रियली एक्सप्लेन कि इसके इस पूरे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के म्यूटेशंस क्या हुए हैं और उसके फेजेस क्या हुए हैं. तो एज आई सेड पहले कि बिल्कुल शुरुआत में was a more, it was resembling something more of the danga fasad that we see elsewhere in the country. It was really like people, civilians at each other's throat. There are of course allegations and there's also some evidence to back it. Ki at least on the sort of in places in Imphal where Kukizo colonies were sort of used to be located. वहाँ पे लोग मतलब कि जो मॉब्स आए थे बेसिकली दूसरे कम्युनिटी, वो दूसरे कम्युनिटी के साथ पुलिस भी साथ साथ आई थी. और लग रहा था कि लग नहीं रहा था, इनफैक्ट काफ़ी विजिबल भी है इन वीडियोस में कि मॉब अपना काम कर रही थी. दैट इज दे वर थ्रोइंग स्टोन्स और वो कि जनरली जो दंगा फसाद कर रहे थे उस वक्त पुलिस बिल्कुल वहाँ पे चुप्पी मौजूद थी. वो कुछ कर नहीं रही थी. दे वर बेसिकली स्टैंडिंग लाइक just bystanders basically, and they did not intervene in any way. They did not seem to kind of stop the mob from doing what they were doing. So that was generally like a complete failure of law and order in the first week, and to quite an extent also the second week of the violence. उसके बाद एक्चुअली हम क्या देखते हैं कि एक तरह से क्या हुआ था कि आफ्टर ये 2 हफ्ते में, पहले हफ्ते में एक दंगा फसाद हुआ था. दूसरे हफ्ते में बेसिकली क्या हुआ था कि काफ़ी लोग तभी भी थोड़े जो दूसरे कम्युनिटी के वो फंसे हुए थे हिल्स और वैली में. और फिर ये व्हाट इज़ वेरी पावरफुल कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में है कि सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, हमारे जो सिविल सोसाइटी बॉडीज़ है विच somewhat act like representative bodies very often, different tribal bodies or ethnic community bodies. So they stepped into the whole the whole game, as they say, and they started like kind of negotiating कि आप हमारे साइड से पहले आप हमारे साइड के जो लोग हैं उनको भेजिए, तभी हम दूसरे साइड के लोगों को रिलीज करेंगे. ठीक है. सो दैट काइंड ऑफ एक्सचेंज नेगोशिएशन स्टार्टेड, क्योंकि काफ़ी मुश्किल हो गया था for people to travel on either side की, स्पेशली अगर हम पॉपुलेशन के हिसाब से देखेंगे तो ज़्यादा कुकीज़ और ट्राइब्स और जनरली बहुत सारे ट्राइबल्स वैली में रहते हैं. वैली इज़ अ मेते डोमिनेटेड एरिया. तो वहाँ पे ज़्यादातर बहुत ट्राइबल्स वहाँ रहते हैं. जितना आई मीन उतने मेतेज हिल्स में नहीं रहते हैं. दैट इज़ एनी पॉपुलेशन सेंसस अगर आप देखेंगे तो वही आपको जानने में मिलेगा. तो इसलिए इस एक्सचेंज में काफ़ी सारे जो ट्राइबल्स हैं वो वैली में फंसे हुए थे. Some of them who were, I don't want to say privileged because they're not privileged, but they somehow were lucky to get some help. क्योंकि उस वक्त क्या हो रहा था कि लोग कोई भी मतलब कि आप पहले हफ्ते को देखेंगे, पहले 10 दिन को शायद देखेंगे, people were catching flights to go anywhere. और ये flights, I mean, as well as expected, airlines also, they were doing this whole profit making margins. They were charging like a normal flight from Imphal to let's say Guwahati or something would should not take you more than 2-3 thousand. उतना लगता है अगर आप चलो एक हफ्ते पहले 2-3 दिन पहले भी बुक करें. उस वक्त ये फ्लाइट्स जो है 20,000 तक हो गए थे. काफ़ी सारे फ्लाइट्स जो है, अगर आप मतलब कि डिब्रूगढ़ जाना चाहते हो या कोई और जाना चाहते हो नॉर्थ ईस्ट की कोई एयरपोर्ट में, फ्लाइट्स वर गोइंग अप टू 40,000. But it was such desperation, especially among the tribals who were living not in a relief camp, but they were basically in the Manipur Rifles camp. They were like in some sort of like temporary protection and also living under enormous fear, क्योंकि बहुत सारे rumors were going around कि और attacks होने वाली हैं. और इनफैक्ट मैंने काफ़ी लोगों से बात की, उन्होंने बोला था कि वहाँ के जो MR या AR के जो जवान भी वहाँ पे बैठे थे, वो खुद बोले थे कि हम आउट नंबर्ड हैं, हमारी संख्या ज़्यादा नहीं है. तो अगर कोई मॉब आती है, लेकिन 1000 की संख्या, 500 की संख्या में अगर मॉब आती है, हम आपको प्रोटेक्ट भी नहीं कर पाएंगे. तो देयर वाज अ ग्रेट
MR is
डेस्परेशन.
military. What is MR?
मणिपुर राइफल्स. मणिपुर राइफल्स. हाँ, तो there was this kind of absolute panic and fear that people were booking flights to go to Tiruvananthapuram. People were booking flights to go to like anywhere in South. They don't have anyone there. They don't know anyone there. They just, if they were lucky enough to get a flight which even costed like 70,000 rupees at the time, they took it. I mean, the few of them who could manage to ask a relative or ask a friend to help them out in that, you know, crisis scenario, that's what they did. तो उस पैनिक के साथ लोग ऐसे में कि बाय लोग आई मीन स्पेसिफिकली ट्राइबल्स, क्योंकि आपको उनको हिल्स जाने के लिए क्या था कि बहुत सारी जो है ना रुकावट हो रही थी ऑन द वे, बिकॉज वैली में बहुत सारे mobs. And I mean, this has to be said because it's a fact that they were Mera Paibis, they were Methi women, you know. मेथी जो महिलाएं हैं वहां पे उन्होंने घेरा बना के रखा था दोनों साइड में कि हम जो है ट्राइबल्स को अपने घर भी नहीं, उनका घर वैली में ही था, पर उनको सेफ्टी में जाने नहीं देंगे. तो वो सिचुएशन हो गया था. इन रिस्पॉन्स फिर बेसिकली ट्राइबल्स ने भी ये कहा कि अगर आप ऐसा कर रहे हो कि आप हमारे लोगों को वापस नहीं आने दे रहे हो, तो आपके जो बचे कुछ लोग हैं हिल्स में अभी भी जो फंसे थे, उनको भी हम जाने नहीं देंगे. तो दैट थिंग हैपेंड लाइक इन आई वुड से द सेकंड थर्ड वीक एट लीस्ट. And from there on, once this exchange, as you said, sort of got finished and got completed, and जितने लोग मतलब कि बेसिकली आई मीन जो कैंप्स या AR या MR कैंप से बैठे थे इम्फाल में, लाइक आई सेड, आधे से कम तो दे टुक व्हाटएवर पैनिक फ्लाइट्स एंड लेफ्ट. और फिर बाकी सब जो है वो एक्सचेंज में दे वेंट बैक. आई मीन नॉट वेंट बैक, आई वांट टू से, बट दे वेंट टू द हिल्स. सम ऑफ देम आर गोइंग बैक, सम ऑफ देम आर honestly just completely displaced because they don't necessarily have any base in the hills also, even though they are tribals. So once that was finished, and then the whole thing started mutating into basically actually what you call a civil war. I don't call that a ethnic conflict anymore. I call that a civil war because both sides are essentially armed. Both sides are using weapons against each other. I mean, everything, all kinds of sophisticated weaponry is at the disposal. There were mass looting of police armories. More mass looting of police armories have happened in the valley. Again, ये सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ मई के महीने में हुआ है, ये बार बार हुए जा रहा है. तो आप अब तक आई थिंक इसमें सरकार ने भी खुद ही एडमिट किया है कि 5000 से ज्यादा जो है ना वेपन्स अभी भी मतलब कि वापस नहीं किए गए हैं, या उनको अभी तक सीज वापस नहीं किया है.
तो इसमें हर बार ये हो रहा है, this mass looting of weapons. Is there compliance from the government या मतलब जो people in authority should stop?
I think
क्या कर रहे हैं?
शुरुआत में क्या है कि क्योंकि ये मास लूटिंग ऑफ वेपन्स, कि ऐसे नहीं, मैं ये नहीं कहूंगी कि ये हिल्स में नहीं हुआ, लेकिन हिल्स में कम, आई मीन थोड़े कम तादाद में हुआ है डेफिनेटली, यू नो. सो दोनों साइड में हुआ था. इनिशियली वो रिएक्शन था क्योंकि इसेंशियली द एंटायर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जो है, पूरा सरकार जो है, हैज गॉटन स्प्लिट अलोंग एथनिक लाइंस, राइट. तो पुलिस के साथ भी यही
Explain to me, why is this an ethnic conflict and why is it not a religious conflict? Because the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom जो है, उनकी रिपोर्ट जो आई है 2024 में, इनफैक्ट आई थिंक फर्स्ट में कोई रिलीज हुई है, it is saying it is citing the burning of churches in Manipur. उसको उन्होंने एक religious persecution या oppressing the minorities का स्टेटस दिया है, पर इन मणिपुर वो एक एथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का ही बना हुआ है. Can you explain why is it not a religious oppression on violence against religious faiths? Because so many churches, इतने सारे churches इसमें burn हुए हैं, like, so there is एक तरह से देख सकते हैं कि targeted attacks हुए हैं.
Yeah, I think this question about religious conflict is a slightly complex one, but there is no absolute yes or no answer to it. There are people who are saying completely yes, and there are people who are saying completely no. I think neither is true. And the reason why is because there is a very strong, however, I mean, despite the very, very strong ethnic overtones of the conflict, and that is the primal front and center of it. There is a very strong religious undertone as well. And I can sort of elucidate this. मैं इसका उदाहरण दो तरीके से दे सकती हूँ. एक तो है कि सिर्फ ये जो अटैक्स जो हुए हैं आपकी जो चर्चेस पे, अगर आप उसकी बात करें, है ना, जिसपे आई मीन एवरीवन फ्रॉम ईयू और अमेरिकन स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट ने काफी गौर किया था. ये जो चर्चेस है ज्यादातर एक्चुअली ये सब चर्चेस वैली में हैं. आप इस बात का ध्यान आई थिंक जरूरी है रखना कि ये सब वैली में थे. और उसके ऊपर ये बात बहुत ही अंडर रिपोर्टेड बात है, जो हमने एक इन्वेस्टिगेशन किया था न्यू लाइन्स मैगजीन के लिए पिछले दिसंबर में अराउंड क्रिसमस टाइम, कि ज्यादातर जो ये चर्चेस जो अटैक हुए हैं दे बिलोंग टू मेते, दे डोंट बिलोंग टू कुकीज़ो, दे डोंट बिलोंग टू ट्राइबल. ये बात जो है ना काफी मिस हो जाती है. जो जब दूसरा जो साइड है एक तरह, आई मीन ऑब्वियसली देयर इज अ नैरेटिव वॉर दैट इज एट प्ले आउट हियर व्हिच इज वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट, बिकॉज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे यहाँ पे जो फैक्ट्स बहुत सैक्रिफाइस हो रहे हैं इस पूरे नैरेटिव वॉर में. तो द फैक्ट इज कि yes, churches were vandalized and attacked and destroyed in all places. I mean, all places meaning wherever there have been attacks from the opposite side. But what is especially of interest and attention is that कि यहाँ पे जो ज़्यादातर जो churches attack हुए हैं वो वैली में हुए हैं, and वो they all mostly belong to Meitei Christians.
इसीलिए तो मैं कह रही हूँ कि if they are belonging to Meitei Christians and even Naga churches were attacked and even Kuki-Jo community churches were attacked.
Yeah.
तो ये religious conflict नहीं है क्या? और ethnic conflict क्यों है? क्यों आप लोग उसको ethnic conflicts के तौर पे देखते हैं?
दोनों है. I don't
मणिपुरी जो देखते हैं.
I don't think it has. That's a thing. I feel like कि यहाँ पे लोग अब वो उनका अपना सबके अपने थोड़े vested interest में यहाँ पे हैं. बट एज अ जर्नलिस्ट मैं यही कहूंगी, और बेस्ड ऑन माई ओन रिपोर्टिंग एंड इन्वेस्टिगेशन, कि हर चीज के दो थोड़े साइड है. While it's true, of course, that there are over almost, I mean, the figures vary from different reports, but at least 150 churches have been vandalized. That is a tall figure. To my knowledge, and to the extent that I know from reporting, yes, also mandirs in the hills were also attacked. And these mandirs could be Hindu mandirs or what, the temples that have been set by the indigenous faith, that is all followed by the Meiteis, called Sanamahism. ठीक है. तो मैंने भी खुद ही, जब मैं गई थी सितंबर के महीने में लास्ट ईयर, मैंने खुद एक टेम्पल जैसे जगह देखा था. जो सनामही लोगों का जो टेम्पल है वो थोड़ा अलग होता है. वो उसमें ऑब्वियसली लोग it's not the same as the Hindu temple and all that. But ये गौर करना, अगर एक दूसरी बात है जो I found very interesting, एक सेम विलेज में एक सनामाही टेम्पल था जिसको मतलब कि वैंडलाइज किया गया था, वो डिस्ट्रॉय था वगैरह वगैरह उसी विलेज में. लेकिन एक एक्चुअल प्रॉपर हिंदू टेम्पल था, पर वो टेम्पल था वो नेपाली टेम्पल था, और उसमें लिखा भी था साइन बोर्ड बाहर गेट में कि ये नेपाली टेम्पल है, तो उसको छुआ नहीं गया था. So you understand what I'm saying? इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में एथनिक भी है और रिलीजियस भी है. Just because कि ethnic, certain temples were not touched because they don't belong to Meiteis, doesn't mean that, whatever. It means that there was obviously a very ethnic angle, like on the tribal side or in the hills, what was happening, कि उनको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं था temples डिस्ट्रॉय करने का. इनफैक्ट काफी सारे बिहारी है जो चूरचांदपुर टाउन में रहते हैं, एंड उन्होंने खुद ही आके बोला था कि हमें किसी तरह से कोई वो मतलब कि आंच नहीं आई थी. अगर आप ये बोल रहे हैं कि ये रिलीजियस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, तो हमें किसी तरह से आंच नहीं आई थी. नथिंग हैज हैपेंड टू अस, नथिंग हैज हैपेंड टू आवर टेम्पल्स फॉर दैट मैटर, और एनी मॉस्क और समथिंग लाइक दैट. लेकिन जो हुआ था वैली में एज फार एज द चर्चेस का कंसर्न, एंड आई अगेन रिपीट, नागा चर्चेस दे माइट हैव बीन 1 or 2, एंड वो भी बोला गया है कि बहुत ही वो मिस्टेक से जलाया गया था क्योंकि वो कुकी चर्चेस के बिल्कुल आस-पास थे. There are a lot of churches are really kind of almost interconnected or closely kind of space, right? But the targets by and large, apart from a few Kuki-Zo churches, were Meitei churches as well as Meitei Christians, pastors who are amongst them.
Why is that?
क्योंकि इसके भी दो in a sense reasons है. क्योंकि one is that the driving force in the valley vis-a-vis this conflict is to make the state what they consider the state, not to be just the valley but the hills and everything, to return to this old sort of dynasty of the Kanglepak. Kanglepak was the last dynasty that existed before the British took over, under the administration. So, and that was, and under that, it's not even true that under that, the last vestiges of that dynasty was Sana Mahism. Actually, the conversion to Hinduism happened before that already, like at least 2 centuries ago. So that's something that is again worthwhile noting here कि जो certain groups है, I mean obviously Arambai Tengol का नाम यहाँ पे लेना बहुत ही जरूरी है because they are driving much of this conflict, and they have they have the kind of sanction, not to mention that they are, paid, they are essentially groups that are directed and managed by, two very, very important politicians in the state, both the Chief Minister Biren Singh as well as the Rajya Sabha MP Sana Chauba. So these are very important positions, which are, who are closely and very openly, kind of associated with these groups. ऐसा नहीं कि वो अपने association को बहुत ही like, खुफिया कह रहे कर रहे या it's all there on social media. ये मैं इस तरह से कह सकती हूँ कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की इन्वॉल्वमेंट तो ज्यादा is so clear that it takes a fool to kind of unsee that. You have to literally unsee that to be in denial of it. But the fact that the central government is also allowing a state to continue doing what it's doing, and with the kind of sanctions from state government, shows that there is a certain complicity, without a doubt.
Quickly, we have a little time. 8 minutes actually. If you can see, the timer is on.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to know, what do you think is the way forward? मतलब ये conflict तो चलता ही जा रहा है, इसका किस तरह से एक conflict resolution कैसे हो सकता है, बंद कैसे हो सकती है, कोई कोशिश भी हो रही है कि नहीं?
कोशिश आई थिंक अगर होती भी है, शुरू भी होती है, तो उसके उस कोशिश को पूरी तरह एक्चुअली आउट से फॉर्मुलेट करने से पहले ही वो बंद हो जाती है, और इसका कारण ये भी है कि ऑफ कोर्स की स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने काफी एक्चुअली एक तरह से वो प्रोपेगेंडा बहुत फैला के रखा है, और ये प्रोपेगेंडा से जो है ना फॉल्ट लाइंस और भी ज्यादा बढ़ रही है. इट्स नॉट डिक्रीजिंग एनी डे. ये क्वेश्चन मुझे ऑनेस्टली मई के महीने से पूछा गया है कि ये इसको कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन कैसे कर सकते हैं. मैं एक तो कहना चाहूँ कि मैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन एक्सपर्ट नहीं हूँ, तो इसमें मेरा कोई ऐसे एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन नहीं है. जस्ट बिकॉज
आई एम फ्रॉम जर्नलिस्ट, यू हियर lots of
even as a journalist, or I don't necessarily think the journalists are for that matter conflict resolution experts. जहाँ तक मैंने देखा इस पूरे conflict में, whether we're talking about national journalists and especially if we're talking about the state journalists, they have honestly been contributing to the conflict in their own ways. So मुझे नहीं लगता they're in a very good place to be able to
No, I'm not asking you as an expert. I'm asking you because you're hearing a lot of voices and you meet a lot of people.
Right.
So
yeah, I think वो ये अगर आप मुझे ऐसा हम कहेंगे कि मुझे ये क्वेश्चन बहुत बार पूछा गया है, and I mean I've had honestly like I feel like it's better to not have an answer, or rather than to feign something. मैं ऐसी कुछ मनगढ़ंत नहीं बताना चाहती, ऐसे कुछ नहीं बताना चाहती which is like feel good to hear, मतलब कि सुनने में अच्छा लगता है लेकिन प्रैक्टिकल नहीं है. लाइक तो बहुत सारे आई रिमेम्बर ये बिल्कुल शुरुआत में बहुत सारे लोगों ने बोला यहाँ पे महिलाओं की का रोल बहुत ही लाइक इम्पोर्टेंट है दोनों सोसाइटी में. महिलाओं को लेके दे शुड लीड द वे, उनको लीडरशिप में बैठाना चाहिए. बट फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज दैट नाइदर ऑफ देम आर इन लीडरशिप. और उससे ज्यादा बड़ी बात ये भी है कि महिलाओं का रोल एज परपेट्रेटर्स ऑफ वायलेंस इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में समथिंग दैट हैजंट been given enough attention. कि महिलाएं यहाँ पे उनका स्पेशली क्या रोल रहा है in aggravating the situation and making it in fact actually much worse. Whether of course that they're being used as agents is a different question. I mean that needs to be obviously like also investigated, but fact point ये बात ही है कि अब तक rather than peacemakers उनको ज़्यादा actually essentially ह्यूमन कैनन फॉडर की तरह ज्यादा इस्तेमाल किया गया, उनको ज्यादा इंस्टिगेटर्स के रोल में ज्यादा इस्तेमाल किया गया है. बट अगर आप मुझे पूछे इस वक्त ईयर आफ्टर द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, आई डोंट थिंक अगर कोई किसी तरह का पीस रेजोल्यूशन और डायलॉग इज नॉट पॉसिबल जब तक both sides don't come to some sort of a common ground of what really happened. Because अब तक क्या है कि दोनों sides hold on to their positions about क्या है, what happened, what basically has happened, and how the whole conflict started. The Metis side, I mean, whether someone agrees with me or not, largely toes the line that has been propagated by the state government. That this is because of illegal immigrants, or this is because of poppy cultivators, and this whole war on drugs campaign. All of those theories and narratives, if I can say, have largely been disproven to, to not really show or establish any causal link to it. On the other side, on the Kuki Zo tribal side, there is a sense of obviously being targeted and being persecuted, which is also true. They have been targeted, they have been persecuted. But having said that, while one side is a victim of state persecution and state targeting, the other side is also victim of state propaganda, which is no better. And it's not like the other side has not lost lives on account of this propaganda. So which is why I think honest to God, honest to goodness, what needs to happen is for some semblance of an agreement of a common narrative of actually how this war actually has nothing to do with ethnicities. It's not that Kuki-Zo and Meiteis are historically enemies or anything like that. Unka koi purana whatever, hisab kitab nahi hai. There is, of course, one can talk about Meitei majoritarianism versus, tribal hegemony, or, sort of the marginalization of tribes in Manipur. That is a very valid and legitimate subject. But specifically between Kuki-Zo and Meiteis, there isn't any such, sort of bad blood. In fact, there's more history of amity. But no one's really looking at that, and everyone is doubling down on what they believe to be true.
ज्यादातर जो वहाँ का जो मीडिया है, would you say कि ज्यादा because it is controlled by the Meitei, the majority community, कि वो ज्यादा biased to the local media, or maybe international or outside India, the national media is less biased, or maybe online platforms? आपका क्या मानना है?
I think वो biased, for local media, or let's say what we call Imphal-based media, because that's where all the media houses are really located. Bias, तो वो ethnic bias is there, and I mean, I can still sort of understand that, or I can still, let's say, make my peace with it, But I think the larger issue in the state is that there is no freedom of expression. There is no freedom of expression, and there is no free speech, and there is no press freedom. And that has been an issue for a much longer time. इसके बारे में मैंने काफी लिखा भी है 2019 में 20 में, और ये स्थिति काफी देर से रही है, और इसके काफी उदाहरण भी है कि basically I mean journalists have been basically booked under, or as well as jailed under sedition. The threat of sedition has been used on independent newsrooms, and now I mean, I will not take any names, or maybe I can take a name or two, because I mean, I understand आपके ऑडियंस के लिए भी शायद यूजफुल रहेगा. अगर आप देखेंगे, ये IFP नाम का एक न्यूज़पेपर है, इनका नाम है इम्फाल फ्री प्रेस. ये बरसों से एक्चुअली हैज बीन सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक अ बीकन ऑफ लाइक इंडिपेंडेंट press freedom in Manipur. I mean, I'm talking about through the 90s and through the 2000s, the very turbulent period in terms of insurgency in the state. But उस वक्त, अभी अगर हम इस वक्त से देखें, तो मुझे कभी लगता है कि वो वक्त भी शायद उतना खराब नहीं था, क्योंकि उस टाइम तो आपको एटलीस्ट पता है कि इंसर्जेंट है, और पुलिस है, और स्टेट है. अभी क्या हो रहा है कि इंसर्जेंट, पुलिस, मिलिशिया, एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप, स्टेट, all of these roles have blended into each other in a very, very worrying manner. But IFP used to be the one newspaper that had really stood its ground. But ab tak jaake it has become a completely puppet of the state government narrative and line. And I think that is I would say the most prescient example of the loss of press freedom in Manipur.
Why have these Meitei churches been attacked? What is the significance of that, since in an ethnic conflict between Kuki, Jo, and Methi community? Where does this come in? And what's happening to them?
Right. So with the attacks on churches, there's really like a larger design at play. It's just honestly not also something which is purely reactionary or along ethnic lines. In particularly, the targeting of churches which belong to Meitei Christians is something that was of particular concern, and something that reveal much more than, well, at least what appeared on the surface. So the thing is basically, I think, to kind of go back a little bit to the origin, is where this group basically called Arambai Tengol and certain other groups like Meitei Lipun, they're basically otherwise registered really as like social organizations or some sort of civil society bodies, but certainly like through the last year they have been shown to play a very active role in the conflict, from whether the fact that they are accused in many of the FIRs that have been filed, both on cases of murder and rape by Kukizo community members. And also the fact that, I mean, I think they were very blatant and open with their essentially, the kind of Taliban-ish kind of rule that they're, they've kind of put in place since the conflict began, when they made many Meitei politicians, basically these legislative assembly members, take an oath, under again, which was forced from them in Kangla Fort, right? So, and not to mention the more recent kidnapping of even the Manipur police official, because the official had basically registered a complaint of a car theft against some of the Arambai Tengol members. So they've really been like steadily kind of coming out and becoming more and more brazen, basically, with the kind of Gundaism or vigilantism that has been, basically at play in the valley. But यहाँ पे religious angle इस तरफ से है कि क्योंकि उनका जो आई थिंक हर एक ग्रुप का एक तरह से एक आइडियोलॉजी वगैरह होता है. द वे वी सी कि RSS, VHP, for that matter, अगर even if you look at more kind of like regional players, जैसे कि महाराष्ट्र में शिवसेना, obviously idolizes that period of Shivaji when he was, whatever, ruling the state or ruling essentially, that dynasty, and how things were so essentially romanticized, the very romanticized, recollection of that particular dynasty. Or in a similar way, and that's something that I've reported in the past also in Assam, there are certain groups like, Ahom Sena or like the Veer Lachit Sena. These are all basically like, I would call them very similar to Bajrang Dal groups. Or inka, jaise ki in Assam, Veer Lachit Sena, Ahom Sena, they all basically, very romantically kind of, recollect the group, the Ahom dynasty, right? The 400-year-old dynasty, 600 year-old dynasty that ruled in Assam right before the British, right? So, ek tarah se yahan pe what we see in a sense almost really across the country is that a lot of these regional kind of vigilante groups have been coming up, and Arambai Tengol is no different. They also kind of idolizes the time under when Manipur kingdom was in place, basically. Now of course the kingdom is just reduced to a titular kind of a monarchy. It doesn't really have any real powers or anything like that. Sana Joba, who is the titular king right now of Manipur, and also the Rajya Sabha MP from Manipur. He's also the titular king and everything. And so, basically he's raised this Arambai Tengol army and everything. And they also romanticize this period of something of Kanglepak, kingdom and everything, when everything was very, well and rosy, and, there was a defined kingdom, and everything this is all pre-British. And it's also at the time, in fact, not really immediately, at least before the British took over, but it was because for at least 200 years before the British took over, Hinduism or Vaishnavism had already spread all across the Meitei kingdom. It happened within the Meitei. So in fact, you know, I mean, I've written about this in both my pieces in New Lines magazine. Agar aap padhe to, just maybe search my name and New Lines magazine. You'll find these two stories. But yeah, I think it's important to note here is that the king himself, you know, and I mean, has this name called Nawaz Garib, but he was a Meitei Hindu, and how he adopted to Hinduism from Sanamahism, you know, inspired by this Brahmin scholar from Bengal. And उसने खुद ही ये order किया था कि पूरे Sanamahism के जो भी, I mean, whatever relics that were there, whatever temples that were there, all of them were to be basically demolished. सो इट्स नॉट लाइक कि जैसे कि आरोप हमेशा होता है ना, जैसे अगर आप इस्लाम या यू नो क्रिश्चियनिटी को देखें कि देयर इज ऑलवेज दैट एक्यूजेशन कि आप आउटसाइडर रिलीजन हो और आपने आके यू नो इंडिजिनस रिलीजन्स को वाइप आउट किया है. दैट इज नॉट द केस इन मणिपुर, क्योंकि क्रिश्चियनिटी, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट इन द वैली, it entered much later. It entered, really made a debut in the you know in the valley, like around what, I think not before the 19th century we're talking, or not at least perhaps not even before the 20th century. It's as late as the 20th century, you know, and which is very opposite to, I mean, which is contrary to what happened.
Isn't it
The
late
proselytization.
19th century? Late 19th.
Actually, when you look at the dates, and I mean, we really, I mean, I looked at a lot of studies. The first wave of conversions in the valley happened as late as 1920. So that would put you down to 20th century, not the 19th century, right? By 19th century, however, like if you're talking about the Lushai Hills, you're talking about the Naga Hills, right? The hill ranges of Northeast, proselytization was already on foot, had already, I mean, more or less well begun, and was all completely, you know, in full swing, if you will, right? So that is a major difference. So this Christianity is a very late entrant. However, this is where I think the role of you know, RSS, the role of the Hindu right in the country also plays a role in this whole religious polarization, even in Manipur, because this idea, ये सोच कहाँ से आए कि, you know, that especially in the context of Manipur, कि Christianity is the religion that is, you know, kind of replacing. Agar, I'm like, if there is even any kind of historical beef, historical resentment, one would think it would likely be against the Vaishnavite Hindus, you know, or for that matter, caste Hindus, because castes essentially entered into the Meitei society with Vaishnavism. It wasn't there in place before that. But however, that anger and that kind of jalous got misplaced completely on, you know, on Christian organizations and churches. So that is one reason. And of course, there is also something that repeatedly was told to us when we were reporting the story, ki over time that, as I said, ki, you know, ye entry of Christianity in the valley has been a very recent phenomena. And, you know, it still is, I mean, there's still a minority, like Meitei Christians are the smallest minority religion-wise among the Meiteis. Like because you have Sanamahis, you have the Hindus, and you have the Muslims as well. So the Christians would be the smallest minority religion-wise in that ethnic community, right? And the idea has basically been, I would say, sold in the last 5-6 years. That it's been sowed in this larger revival that I'm aware of, that groups like VHP and RSS has been doing in Manipur to revive, you know, the idea of Sanamahism and get everyone to be proud and to culturally adopt Sanamahism, you know. But in that kind of, you know, revival movement and kind of effort, the association between, you know, being tribal and being Christian has become rather indelible. So one of the reasons for also kind of attacking or forcibly converting a lot of Meitei Christians is that if you are adopting Christianity, then you have become like the tribals. You have lost all touch with, you know, any aspect of Sanamahism, which is not true so much for Hindus, because Meitei Hindus are still observing some parts of Sanamahism, so they are still good. So unko convert karne ke liye, they just have to, like, maybe more explicitly pay their respects to the Sanamahi gods, and that should suffice. But for Meitei Christians, they are like the flock that have completely, turned away and completely gone away from home, and hence to do that Ghar Vapsi, not only do they have to like get rid of all symbols of Christianity in their home, they have been made to forcibly burn their Bibles, to kind of renounce the Christianity as a faith, and they've been also asked to sign an affidavit, a legal affidavit or a court affidavit that Arambai Tengal groups carry with them to kind of legally renounce that they are the Christianity religion or the faith, and to adopt Sanamahism, or not even adopt really. I would say that the way the wording or the narrative is that they are returning to their religion. But that's not the case. When we asked if what the Hindus were required to do, the caste Hindus, so to speak, or the Vaishnavite Hindus, they said, well, no, Vaishnavite Hindus, because they've anyway been observing some aspects of Sanamahism, like they just have to kind of make it more explicit. They don't have to like sign any affidavits and things like that, which also kind of goes back to, I think this larger issue in the country where for one, we don't have a legal definition for indigenous faiths. And that's something that a lot of, people from indigenous faiths have been, kind of complaining about and have a major grouse of being included on or subsumed under the category of being Hindu, but that's literally how the Indian legal system essentially looks at religions in India, that you either, either it's you're Christian or you're, traditionally, historically speaking, you're Christian or you're Muslim, right? And the rest of you, whether you're Jains or Sikhs or, any kind of indigenous faiths, you're essentially Hindus, because we didn't have a like definition of Hindus until the British came.
Thanks for explaining that to us. I just want to get into one more thing about women, violence against women, sexual violence against women. How pronounced is that, and or has it been downplayed by everyone, or is it really bad? Or are there just those 2-3 incidents that happened earlier which came to light?
No, it's far from just the 2-3 incidents. I mean, if you talk about gender-based violence, there have been about, at least I know of 31 recorded incidents at least. The last that I was there, I was also reporting on one particular incident which hasn't even come to light as yet till now. So yeah, there are, but Abby, I think if you were to specifically look at sexual violence, there are at least 15 recorded, there are at least 14 recorded FIRs around it. So it's hardly 3 or 2.
Okay. Are they being recorded? Because a lot of them also remain unrecorded in these kind of conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we can never tell, we can never speculate exactly how many are left unrecorded, but I think to kind of, even just look at the numbers of, like the numbers of recorded instances, even if you're talking about anything over 10, and I mean, with the exception of one case which happened to come out like, in August, much later, all cases all of the cases the victims are or survivors are from the Kuki-Zo tribal community. I think this is probably, and I could be taking a bit of a wild guess here, but it could be, I think, one of the highest recorded cases of sexual violence during sectarian violence in the country in a while.
I also saw recent conflicts. I mean, as recent as last month. So it's just continuing, and there doesn't seem to be an end to it. Now this civil war situation is really bad. So how do you all feel about it? I mean, what are you all thinking in terms of the communities there? This is like a static thing which just is going to remain there for years, or normalization, or what would you even call normalization?
I think it's a very kind of an open answer. It's not a very, it's still not really a, let's say we're still not really in a place where anyone can really see an end sight to this, or, where this is all leading up to, or how this would kind of come to an end, even if the end may not be very, kind of a very close-ended conclusion, right? So no one really, everyone's still very much, I think, lost, wondering, and I think very much, if you ask me, still in shock, and still processing a lot of a lot of a lot of trauma, a lot of this entire whatever deepening and complete rupture of social relations. I don't really think, if you ask me, people have really come to terms with it entirely. I think it's like there's still this kind of disbelief that just how it went from where to where, and how people are in this kind of like position and everything. There's still a lot of raw anger, a lot of raw emotions, everything from betrayal and sort of essentially the sense of betrayal seems to be kind of going rife, whether talking about the Kukizos or the Meiteis. Actually, that's something that I've noticed commonly across both sides. And yeah, I mean, I think that's generally still very much it's not like even that the needle on emotional, kind of I don't know, emotional progression has changed much in a year's time. And I think that says everything about the management of this conflict, where a government in place has not even been, for that matter, forget like kind of dispossessing arms or de-weaponizing people in any way. I think they've not even managed to kind of you know create any kind of social harmony. They've actually, and I have enough instances to kind of essentially base this on. There have been perhaps more deliberate attempts to only create more divide and more sectarian remarks.
What's happening to the one other big community here, the Naga community? They are very big in number in terms of numbers, and I think they form over 25% of the population, and they're also a predominantly Christian community. What's happening to them? Are they completely out of this whole conflict? Where are they in this situation?
They're not out of the conflict actually, and I think it's with the Nagas, it's a very delicate position as well. Much like many of the Meiteis, or any, for that matter, anyone in Manipur Valley in particular, you know, they're not in a position to quite speak freely and openly. Like I said, and I mentioned before, that there have been attacks on Naga women in particular. There've also been, of course, instances of harassment of Naga men, where the Kuki-Zo people have been kind of accused and things like that. What has been important to note is that when the instances of any harassment or any kind of tiff, if you will, where the accused is the Kuki-Zo, then the Naga civil society response has been a lot more kind of loud, a lot more, along the lines of warning that we are not part of this conflict and don't drag us into it, kind of a thing, But however, whenever there have been, and there have been several more instances of, like I said, particularly Naga women who've been attacked, by Meitei men or mobs, or essentially the Rambai Tengol. The response from their civil society has been a lot more muted, and the kind of public response from the CM and the government, the state government, has been, at least on the face of it, to show that they are quickly responding to any miscreants. It's kind of been dismissed off, or kind of kept as a isolated incidents, but they still, I mean, like many other communities, honestly, are living under fear, because uh, any conflict affects every community. There's no community that is bereft of it, or has the privilege to be like completely, what I'm saying, yeah, living free from its consequences. I think the only difference with the Nagas is that, unlike the Kuki-Zos, they can access the valley. There's been an outpouring of brotherly love towards the Nagas by the Meiteis, at least online, that I see of, and also by the government. Almost kind of like pandering to them as they are the sort of the indigenous tribal brothers, of the state, whereas Kuki-Zo are the illegal immigrants, so they're kind of trying to select or choose their allies and stuff like that. I think by and large, Naga, if I had to judge by the civil societies and other groups for that matter, they've been playing it safe. They are being politically strategic, or they think they are being politically strategic about this. But they also have a very, if you know what I'm saying, the shadow of their, let's say, their own movement for independence, and their own movement for autonomy within the Indian Union is lurks very strongly in Manipur, because if there's any, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the Meiteis obviously being the Kuki-Zo decision to get more autonomy. The Kuki-Zo want a union territory, basically, much like Ladakh, right? However, what we know is that on the Naga front, there's already been since 2016. Nothing has come out. That's a different question, but it's been there, and it's very clear in the day that the Nagas, whether want to unite together, those who are in Nagaland, those who are in Manipur, those who are in Assam, those who are in Arunachal. So there's a very clear demand there. So in the past as well, Meiteis in the valley have revolted against any kind of splitting of Manipur, and that's when you hear them talk about protecting Manipuri, the territorial integrity of the state. So that is, I don't think the Nagas are any less of a threat on that front. But it also, this whole conflict makes things very complicated for the Nagas. So it's a bit of a, I mean, and they mostly are trying to keep to themselves and show a neutral facade as much as possible, because that would be in their best interest. It actually isn't. Interestingly enough, it is not in their best interest. I mean, it's not very clear, or it's not entirely, let's say, it's arguable who's a better ally for them. Is it the Meiteis or the Kukis? Because both ways there are there are some complications and compromises to be made. So I think it's a very wait and watch thing for them, which is why they're just being, like I said, very, very smartly silent through this whole time.
Thanks a lot. हमने बहुत सारी चीजों पर बातें करी। उसको आपका धन्यवाद कि आपने हमारे प्रोग्राम में आके हमें ये सारी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मणिपुर में जो हो रही है उसके बारे में समझाया। Thank you for being part of our show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonal. Shukriya बहुत।